SIBO is very hard to diagnose. It can affect 80% of the population who is diagnosed with IBS. I recently tested for SIBO, which is Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. It was just one of the protocols my naturopath wanted to set me up on because based off the symptoms I've been having, I was showing signs for SIBO. I've been struggling with IBS for the past 3 years, and now I'm on a new healing journey. SIBO is something I want to break down in today's video. I want to talk about what the heck SIBO is, what are the characteristics and symptoms of SIBO, what were symptoms I was presenting, and why the majority of people who have been diagnosed with IBS and still can't seem to find an answer probably have SIBO. We're going to break all of that down in today's video, and I'm going to do it in more of a storytelling type of way, talking about my journey testing for it. I want to help you figure out if maybe testing for SIBO is a good option for you. If you don't know me, my name is Jess. I am putting a lot of time, money, and energy into my healing journey to overcome the chronic IBS symptoms that I've been having. I hope by being fully transparent about where I'm at as I'm doing this journey, it will empower you to look at your health in a different perspective and see how you can overcome either your chronic issues or just maintain a healthy lifestyle. As I always mention, I am no professional. My background is not in medical or anything like that. I'm just a woman who has digestive issues and IBS, and I've done a lot of research, reading, podcast listening on my own so I can understand my body and my health journey. And I just really want to share that with you guys to empower yourself, because I know when I've been going through this, I never know what test to take, what kind of doctor to talk to. It's very overwhelming. I hope by talking about this, it's going to empower you to start your own journey. All right, so let's break it down. What the heck is SIBO? So SIBO stands for Small Intestinal Bacterial Overgrowth. We're not really supposed to have bacteria growing in our small intestine. That's mostly for our gut and our large intestine. Our small intestine's job is to absorb nutrients from the food that's broken down in our stomach to nourish our body. That means that all of the nutrients that is supposed to be absorbed by my small intestine and be pushed out to my bloodstream, it's instead being eaten by this bacteria. So a lot of characteristics for SIBO can be malnutrition, malabsorption of nutrients from your food, because instead of nourishing your body, it's nourishing all of the microbes within your small intestine. SIBO can arise for a bunch of different reasons. It can arise from a compromised immune system, from having dysbiosis in the gut. So that means you have more bad bacteria than good bacteria. Maybe you have slow gut motility, slow digestion from your stomach down to your colon. It can be a breeding ground for bacteria. You could also have low stomach acid. That bacteria can migrate down to your small intestine and make themselves at home there. There's a lot of different hypotheses running around in the medical community of how SIBO originates. In my case, we think that I may have low stomach acid. That's usually brought on by things like drinking a lot of alcohol, eating processed foods, and stress can play a major role in this. So I already did a video on the root causes of my IBS. I'm gonna link it right here where I talk about all of the major root causes that has led to a huge disruption within my own gut, and I hope that gives you a little bit more clarity on what may be going on with you. Regardless of what causes your SIBO, if you have it and you test for it, it does wreak a lot of havoc on your body, and it can lead to other issues such as leaky gut, chronic fatigue, malnutrition, and more. SIBO is very hard to diagnose. It can affect 80% of the population who is diagnosed with IBS. The reason why most people don't understand what SIBO is, or maybe you have tested but you tested negative for it, is because it shows a lot of the same symptoms as other digestive issues. Doctors don't normally test for it because they think you may have some other diseases. But some of the common characteristics of SIBO are things like constipation, diarrhea, lots of gas like immediately after a meal, maybe you're nauseous after a meal. If you develop food sensitivities where you didn't have a food sensitivity before, and you can feel that almost immediately after you eat or up to 90 minutes. Another sign is maybe your symptoms get progressively worse throughout the day. So you start the morning off strong, but by the end of the day, you're really bloated, you're nauseous, things like that. You can also have acid reflux, and it's usually present more in the upper tract of your digestive system. You have a lot of bloating, distension of the belly. Maybe you got some blood work done and it's showing deficiencies, vitamin A, B12, or vitamin D, and maybe you have some weight changes too. One thing I want to mention, because SIBO is often misdiagnosed, you really got to advocate for yourself whenever you're working with any type of doctor. This could be your family doctor that you go to, it could be a gastrologist, it could be a naturopath. Test in itself is not entirely accurate. I know for the first time I was tested for SIBO was 3 years ago. Whenever my gut issues first arose, I did like a 20-minute breath test for SIBO, and it didn't show that I had any signs for it, but clearly something was up. I think it's so important that if you do suspect that you have SIBO, advocate for yourself and also get the right test done. The last time I tested for SIBO, which was a month ago, I ended up doing a breath test where you take a lactulose or sugar substance, and then they measure the amount of hydrogen or methane present in your breath throughout the course of those 2 to 3 hours, which is definitely what's recommended for people with SIBO. We have a slow transit time, so the longer the test is, the more likely these symptoms are going to present themselves. That's going to be a lot more accurate for you. It was interesting because I ended up fasting for about 20 hours before I did this test. You have to be on a very restrictive diet right before, because they don't want you to eat anything that would interfere with the bacteria in your small intestine. Whenever I saw that I could only eat baked or boiled chicken and rice, but rice hurts my stomach, I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna fast, it's easier. So I fasted for 20 hours and I took this lactulose sample, and over the course of those 3 hours, every 20 minutes you have to blow into these tubes. I did a whole vlog on my TikTok about it. I started to have digestive issues. I was starting to like bloat over the course of the 3 hours, was feeling very nauseous, crampy, and I already knew like this isn't a bad sign. If I'm reacting like this to the lactulose substance, the bacteria in my gut are just eating this up. That's to say, I would advocate for getting that 2 or 3 hour breath test. And then I would also make sure that you do get standard blood work done. You know, let's rule out other things, like if you have celiac, if you have Crohn's, there's blood work that you can do that may indicate you could have those diseases. And you can also check for your vitamin levels too. Check your levels of vitamin A, B12, vitamin D, because with SIBO, you tend to be lower in those vitamins because you're just not absorbing those nutrients from your food. If you suspect that you have SIBO, and please reach out, message me if you have any questions or want any more tips on how to do this. I'm here to help. I've been through it all and I'm still going through it too, so we can learn together. So now the fun part, how my results came out. It did show that I have methane dominant SIBO. You can have methane dominant SIBO, hydrogen dominant SIBO, and sulfate dominant SIBO. Methane SIBO, you tend to be more constipated. You bloat a lot after you eat. You may have increased body fat and weight gain too, because the transit time is very fast and then that waste just kind of sits in you. Not cute. When my naturopath was explaining methane dominant SIBO, I was like, that's it. Like, it literally depicts how I feel on a day-to-day. So for me, I will have like a stretch of constipation where I just won't go to the bathroom for like 3, 4, 5 days, and then I will go all at once. I will also be super gassy. I tend to be a little bit more sensitive to fiber, so eating cruciferous vegetables or just fiber-rich foods make me really gassy, and it's that like not so pleasant type of gas. It may smell like rotten eggs. It's just not cute at all. Apologies in advance to my boyfriend who has to deal with that. And another key symptom is I have extreme bloat, distension of my belly almost immediately after I eat, and my symptoms do get way worse throughout the day too. Explaining all of these symptoms, it just sounded so spot on for myself, and it felt so relieving to finally have an answer and have a doctor advocating for me and being like, yep, you know, you have this, let's do a course of treatment. So that felt very empowering. Anyways, it did show I have methane-induced SIBO, but I met right at the threshold. If you need to score a 10 on this test, after those 3 hours, I was at a 10, like I was right at the threshold. And with breath tests, they're just very sensitive. It's just hard to test for it, point blank. And because I was at the threshold, my naturopath recommended that I get a second opinion. And side note, I'm about to rant for a little bit. She wanted me to get a second opinion with a gastrologist, and you all know I just do not have a great history with gastrologists. I feel like all they do is treat your symptoms and prescribe medication that just really doesn't help. But she wanted me to see a gastrologist just to rule out some of those other diseases I've talked about. I've met with a gastrologist in the past and I've ruled out things like celiac, but I've never gotten a colonoscopy or endoscopy to test for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis. And so I was like, you know what, it can't hurt. I went and I saw a gastrologist that was recommended by her practice, and it just brought me back to the first time I stepped into a gastrologist's office, just, going through 3 years of symptoms and diets I've done and medications and supplements I've taken and still not having an answer. We did some blood work. They wanted me to take an additional stool test, and I hadn't done that in about a year, so I was like, you know what, it's fine. I'm due for another one anyways. When I left, she gave me this pamphlet on fibrous foods I could eat, and she told me I should just take Metamucil or Miralax. I told her I don't have a good history with Metamucil, like it actually ended up making my symptoms worse. It gave me diarrhea, all of this. And she was like, oh, well then try Miralax and eat more fiber. And it is just so frustrating because eating fiber isn't my problem. Like, I'm probably eating too much fiber, and that may be my problem. I am eating a ton of fiber throughout the day, and it seems like the bacteria in my gut love it, and maybe that's why I'm presenting symptoms. So like, the blanket solution to just eat more fiber or take a laxative is horrible advice, and having that come from a gastrologist is just so disheartening. And I walked out of there in a bad mood, but regardless, like, I'm still happy that I did the blood work and I did the stool test. Those came back clear, it came back showing I didn't have Crohn's, I didn't have ulcerative colitis, I didn't have celiac marker. My stool test, everything came back clean. I don't have parasites, and yeah, like, it's everything I suspected it would be, because that's what's happened to me time and time again. Like, I'll go to these doctors and everything looks clear, but I still feel sick after every meal, and I feel bloated, and I wake up with like diarrhea. Like, I told you I was gonna rant for a bit. That's the end of my spiel, but here's the journey, it's everything I'm trying to share with you guys. I don't regret seeing the gastrologist. It ruled out some other more serious diseases that, if I needed treatment, would have completely shifted our course of action. Understanding where I'm at, my naturopath and I decided that we will continue to treat my SIBO. Even though I tested right at the threshold, we're going to take a broad, holistic approach to pretty much kill off the SIBO and any other bad bacteria present in my gut. We've decided that it's not really necessary to do further testing. She suspects that I probably have something else playing a role in all of the symptoms that I have, or maybe I'm just very symptomatic to the SIBO, even though at the threshold it probably wouldn't bother other people. With that, it's safe to say that I definitely have something else off in my gut. We think that there could still be other pathogens that are contributing to my symptoms. Now, a year ago, I was working with a holistic chiropractor. That's a whole other story, because I tested for Candida overgrowth. I still think that I probably have Candida overgrowth still in my gut, making my symptoms worse than what they could be for just SIBO alone. And regardless, I'm just not going to continue to test for it, and we're just going to take a broad spectrum approach. Thanks so much for joining me and listening to this video on what SIBO is and how to be tested for it if you think that you may have it. In my next video, I'm going to break down the exact protocol that my naturopath has me on to rid of SIBO, and hopefully will help heal my digestive issues moving forward. I'll have that video up in the next couple of days, and in the meantime, message me, reach out, ask any questions that you may have, and let me know what you would want to see next whenever I talk about my gut healing journey. You can also follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and my blog is now up and live, jessicatafoo.com, where I continue about my journey. I have more recipes on exactly what foods I'm eating, since I am on a restrictive diet right now. I appreciate you for following along with my journey, and stay tuned for the next one.